In this video, we're going to discuss how to secure API calls and what you really need to do and consider to make sure that your API calls are safe. Right now, what we can see on the screen is our API connector, and we have a call that we're making to our Shopify store. So in our Bubble application, we have a list of products. You click on a product, and once you've clicked on the product, we hit our Shopify store and display all the images for the product so that the buyer or potential buyer can view all of these products. Now, this is what our call here is doing. And what I want to highlight is just what kind of information is displayed publicly to the end user on our Bubble platform, and how for us as developers, we need to consider this visibility and how that will impact how we should secure our application. So right now, what happens when Bubble sets up an API call is the API calls are just saved in the code file. So any user on our platform can actually view the API calls, including the URL information, for example, of where the API is connecting to. And they can also view any parameters which aren't checked as private. So they can view all of that information. So to secure these two things, I do want to make a couple of changes. The first change I want to make is I don't want anyone to know what my unique Shopify store name is. So when I'm connecting to the Shopify store, I'm connecting to my own version of the Shopify store, my Airdev store. And I don't want people to know the URL of the Shopify store that I'm connecting to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a parameter called store name here. And I'm going to now add in Airdev over here, and I'm going to make sure that this URL parameter is checked to private. So that means that this information will never be provided to the front end. It won't be stored in the code file, so people can't just view that information. Now, the second thing that I've done is when I was initializing my call, I had this product ID parameter so that I know which product images are going to be pulled from my Shopify store, and then I can just view and make sure that this has been set up correctly. Now, because this particular parameter isn't checked to private, any person on our platform can view this product ID. While right now that isn't a big security risk for me, I don't mind that they can view this. And the reason why I've made sure that this parameter is not checked as private is because it is a dynamic value. So if you click on a different product, you select a different product ID, so different images will be displayed to you. But for good practice, I want to delete or clear this initial parameter so that it isn't visible to anyone on the front end so that they can just view my product IDs. The final thing that I want to highlight is just the need to clean up the response schema. So if I go down to here and I click on manually enter API response, what Bubble is doing is it's saving the response it receives back from Shopify. So when we initialize our call, we make a call to Shopify. Shopify sends us a response with the images. We want to save this, or Bubble saves this just so that it understands exactly what kind of response it's expecting to receive from the external service. And then it saves exactly how it wants to understand and interpret that response. So for that reason, it always saves a copy of the response on the platform. And this response is actually saved in the code file. So anyone who accesses our Bubble platform is actually able to see a list of all the response schemas or all the initialized API calls, exactly what kind of information was provided back from the external service. So for this particular reason, we should always check our response schemas and just make sure that there isn't any sensitive information stored in them. And if there is, we should make sure that we replace that with placeholder values. Now, in this particular case, there isn't any information that I'm overly concerned about. But to give you an example of how we would hide this, right now we have the source here, which has the URL of the image. We can actually replace this information with a dummy value, which would be, for example, image URL. I can then click the save button, and what that will do is it will just replace the response schema to have a dummy value there. So right now we have src, which is the source, and then we have image URL, the dummy value that we provided saved as a text. So this video goes into exactly how you can secure your API calls, including what kind of information is displayed to the end user, and then how you should really think about and consider hiding and redacting any information that you don't want displayed to the end user.